Council at Large Poston.
Here.
Ward number 1 Hembry.
Here.
Ward number 2 Helm.
Here.
Ward number 3 McNeil.
Here.
All right, next up is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next up would be the agenda approval, and if there are no additions or subtractions, can I get a motion to approve? McNeil with the first.
Second.
And Helm with the second.
Cummins?
Oh, she's not here. We can't. All right, I think Abby Cummins is online, but we can't get her unmuted, so we'll
Poston?
move on with that.
Yes.
Hembry?
Yes.
Helm?
Yes.
McNeil?
All right, next up is the communications portion, and we don't have any scheduled. So if anyone would like to address the city council, make your way to the podium and state your name for the record.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Miner with the bakery. We want to thank you for approving the facade grant match so that we could change the front of our bakery. I think it's made a huge improvement. We get lots of compliments. With that being said, we've been watching the construction. We know it's going to be great when it's done. We just need to find answers onto how we can make our business be successful next summer as well. So I guess my question is, do we know, is the alley project going to be done before the road construction starts next year? Do we know, have any idea?
We haven't discussed the alley project.
Okay, because that's going to be huge for us, because
The council, I can't remember what the actual wording of the motion was.
We have internally among the staff, but the idea is once Windstream and Mediacom vacate the alley or put their infrastructure underground, the idea was then to try to do what was appropriate for certain parts of the alley, such as we were looking at the use of the pavement patcher, which it's kind of like a small, the effect of it's sort of like tar and chips, just generally like seal coat. Other places might be more appropriate for a patch, like a long asphalt patch like you might see on some of the streets. But we really have been waiting for mostly Windstream to get its stuff underground, get its poles out, repair where the poles were, and then, I'm just generalizing, but then we could assess what could work with the pavement patch or what could work with the asphalt patches.
well, one of the things we are throwing around and wondering if we could even do this is if we could use the alley as a pickup, kind of like Monty's used to do. Meteor, I'm assuming is still doing it. Because if not, then we may be forced to close because we have elderly customers and most of our traffic is walk-in and unpredicted, unplanned. So they're not going to have the accessibility to get to the front of our building. If it's anything like the groom station has been this time through, I've struggled to get my dog in and out of there. The guys are courteous, they're great, but there's just a lot of commotion. And we've had enough of our customers say, how do I get to you now? And so it's easy for us to get them to, around now. But when we have to say, well, then you got to walk around, so we're wondering, are we going to be better off to close, rent somewhere else? We have been approached to actually go to Bettendorf. So we're just trying to figure out, what the best thing is gonna be for us, because our numbers, of course, are down this year, which we figured. He's not helping, but, next year's gonna be probably twice that. So we're just trying to anticipate that. I know closing completely, for a second time is not going to be very good for us. It'll be very critical for us, so we're trying to avoid all of that we can. And the sooner we have our minds made up, then we can get the advertising out and get the word out, because that takes months for people to go, oh, you moved out of the block, oh. So I just wanted to know kind of where we were at, and also for liability reasons, I guess I have a question. I don't know if you've been down our alley recently, but on the building side of our LP tank, they have a big hole that they've dug. I don't know if it's 12 or 14 inches in diameter, and it goes down deep enough that they have 2 cones sitting upside down in it. And it's been there for months. So my question is, if somebody doesn't see that, walks in it, am I liable? Or, you know what I mean? So just something else for you to pass on to, I'm assuming Windstream, whoever's hole that is. So they've not been good about filling that stuff.
Here. Yeah, he's out of state.
So,
Yeah, we don't want the alley to be in the condition it's in right now, next year.
okay,
We want it to be a better surface than what's right there right now.
okay,
But the effort is to try to do it as much as possible in-house. And then again, stuff that makes sense to have a contractor come in and maybe do asphalt patching. We'll take a look at that and bring it to the council and see if the council agrees. But we've been, I think we've realized that the alley isn't meant to be an official detour, but it's going to be an unofficial detour for a lot of people, a lot of businesses, just people traveling those blocks. So yeah, we're gonna try to get Windstream and MediaCom done. And we're gonna try to make the alley better than it is now, but as much in-house as we can.
okay. We greatly appreciate it. Like I said, I just wanted to touch base because we're having to think of all of these things now to be proactive about it. So I just wanted to touch
Exactly.
base.
Yep.
Let's see where we're at. And again, I wanted to thank you guys for the grant as well. So thank you.
Can't interrupt their croissant still.
You what?
We can't interrupt a croissant, so we took.
I know, right? Well, I just had a guy call me Saturday. We close at 12:30. He called me at 10 to 12. I just left Davenport. You close at 12:30, right? No. But I gotta have some crescent. So I waited.
All right. Thank you, Tiffany.
Yeah.
All right, online as well, if anyone would like to speak. All right, so we'll close that portion of the meeting and move on to the consent agenda. And these are items that can be enacted with one motion. The approval of the council meeting minutes from July 31st, approval of the council meeting minutes from August 7th, approval of the investment treasurer's report from July of 23, approval of the library minutes from July 17th, approval of the library director's report from July of 23, approval of a liquor license renewal for Mi Tierra, the approval of a street closure in the 100 block of 6th Street between the entrances and exits of Hardee's for L&B's Poorhouse from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. on Saturday, October 28th. The approval of a change order number 2 in the Highway 38 to South Street construction to Triple B in the amount of $33,292. Approval of the pay application number 5 of the replacing of the Highway 38, also to Triple B construction in the amount of $639,257.53. And then the approval of an extension of the services agreement between the City of Tipton and Public Consulting Group LLC. It says in parentheses here that none of the changes in the wording of the contract, but if anybody would like to renew or review that agreement, it can be available upon request. And finally, the approval of the claims register, which includes claims paid under the current purchase policy. Any of these need to be pulled out? Think there are none. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion.
Poston with the first.
Second.
And McNeil with the second.
Poston,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
McNeil,
All right, next up is a public hearing, and this is a public hearing in regards to the James Kennedy Family Aquatic Center. Dan Strain from KPE is online, but first I need a motion to open the public hearing. McNeil with the first and Hembry with the second.
Hembry,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Poston,
Yes.
All right, Mr. Wagner?
Coming into the public hearing, I'm not aware of any comments that we've received, either calls or written communication. This is the second public hearing that we've had for the project. This one has the unit, again, mounted on the roof. At the last council meeting, the council authorized a field modification to the unit so that the vendor for it can make that so that wherever we put it, it doesn't need a transformer anymore. And Dan commented that much of the cost reduction from where it was, how it was priced out before, is due to the fact that the transformer isn't needed. The cost estimate is $145,000. There's an alternate one which adds it or ties it into the direct digital control system. That's estimated at $6,200. If approved going forward, there's a pre-bid meeting right now scheduled for August 30th. Bid opening would be September 15th. And then September 18th at that council meeting, you could make a possible award, or that's your earliest opportunity to make an award. So with that, Dan, or if anybody has any questions for Dan, please go ahead.
This goes to the public too. Dan, I have one. If the council, if that timeline Brian had just talked about, and the council is able to award a contract on September 18th, do you have any idea when the earliest construction could start?
That would be, we'd have to work with the contractor on that. I don't know how long it would take you guys to turn around a contract. But we're estimating the project to take 8 to 10 weeks as a whole. So they could start, demo as soon as they get a contract from you guys.
There's usually
And I can turn around a bid recommendation pretty quick.
There's usually a period where you have to get bonds in place.
Right.
And you have to do notice of award, notice to proceed. So that could take a few weeks.
Correct.
For the most optimistic timeline, when they start demolition is 8 to 10 weeks.
Yeah, when they start, yeah. Now we may get somebody who says, hey, we can do it faster. And if they can, great. But that's our estimate for what they do have to order. They'll have some small structural steel and stuff that they'll have to order and a few electrical items.
We're not gonna know until we get the bids.
Yeah.
Larry?
Do I understand there's going to have to be some additional roof support to put that up there? Did I hear or read that correctly?
Correct. We've placed this, this was one of the things that kind of took, we've placed it where it's going to be on as many of the possible existing joints as we can. But with the additional weight of this unit compared to any of the existing, there will need to be some structural reinforcement, which will consist of some plates for the top and bottom cords of the joist and then some steel rods for that reinforcing.
Also, what kind of a guarantee or warranty is there on a unit like this?
I would have to look up what that warranty is.
Projects, it's typically 4 years. I don't know if this is similar.
Spending this much money on something, I think you would be able to get some sort of a decent warranty on it. We don't want to have to look at this again in 4 or 5 years at our cost.
Yeah. We didn't do specs on this since this was pre-ordered, but and I don't know, this is just a guess because I can't find it, but the heat exchanger and compressor on that is normally like 8 to 10 years. But that is something that we can find out. But it's we didn't do specs since it was a pre-ordered unit.
Somebody down there brought that up. Warranty started. Warranty.
Yeah, we can find that out.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments from? All right. Is there, then I'll close this public hearing. Need a motion to close the public hearing? McNeil with the first and Helm with the second.
Hembry,
Yes.
Helm, McNeil,
Yes.
Posturing,
Yes.
All right, so we'll move down to city business, and the first one under that is a resolution that would approve the plans, specs, cost estimates, and also the form of contract for the James Kennedy Family Aquatic Center pool dehumidification project. Anything changed since public hearing, Mr. Wagner?
No, not yet.
All right, then, since we didn't have any questions before, I'll assume we don't now. Is there a motion to approve this?
Motion.
Second.
Hembry with the first and Posturing with the second.
Helm,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Posturing,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes.
All right, the next one up is a discussion of possible action concerning the schools, the Tipton Community Schools request to refill the pool through October 31st for swim team practices. Once again, Dan is online if we have any questions for him, and Adam is at the podium. Mr. Wagner?
Well, I hope I covered it accurately in the synopsis I gave, but the school is hoping to avoid having the members of the swim team do extra travel time to and from the Y in Muscatine. And it's more than just that, but and they're here and can talk to that with better detail. But the request was similar to the motion that we have, and that would be in order to avoid some of the problems related to traveling back and forth between Muscatine, could the school or could the city refill the pool and have it used for that purpose through the end of October? And in your synopsis, I don't know how much you want to go into it, or if Dan wants to just go into it, but one of the questions that came up when we met with school representatives was, if the pool is filled and operated for another 2.5 months, how much additional damage could it really do to what's already there? My question was, if a bidder is selected and ready to go on, say, November 1, how long would we have to wait for the pool section of the building to be dried out and ready for them to proceed? Dan's email answered it in a different way, having to do with the air quality and concern about making whoever is using the pool ill. So anyway, Dan, do you want to take it from there as to what you're recommending and why?
So I guess I'll just say, as a licensed professional engineer, our job is to protect the public and, look out for the safety of the public. We do a lot of natatoriums. These pools have the chemicals in there. And I don't, you guys use chlorine to disinfect, which it has the chloramines that off gas from that. And that's kind of like the smell that you would smell from the chemicals. So when we have these dehumidification units, it's dehumidifying the space, but it's also bringing in ventilation air and exhausting air. And to keep that indoor air quality, and you're getting so many air changes per hour. Without that unit running, and I know you have the old unit, but we don't know at what capacity it is running, and only one of them is currently operating. So to me, you wouldn't have enough to keep that space, to what we would want to see as the engineer. And if it gets too bad, there's times where that can cause irritation on the skin and eyes, and even have respiratory problems for some people. So I'm following ASHRAE recommendations on what they want to recommend. And without a unit up there operating, I don't know how we can control the temperature and humidity. And I don't know how we can provide enough ventilation to keep the occupants comfortable and safe in that space. Does that make sense?
So after we met with the school officials, we said, well, we reached out to them again, and Dan came back with this. And also I talked to Abby, and then I talked to Brian as well. Like, we would have to fill the pool, balance it, get back to you, sample back before we can open. And if we do on November 1st, we have to drain it, dry it out before we start construction. So that's going to be at least 3 weeks right there, a week and a half and a week and a half. So that's 3 weeks into their season if we do that way. Plus, I did check with, I'm not sure how much it would cost just to fill it up. It's a 160,000 gallon pool that we have to fill, and then back to sample, get everything ready to go. So that's why I reached out to Dan. I mean, to be honest with you, I forgot about the chloramine stuff. I read about the water, that chlorine does not maintain the ventilation system. That's right. So I was just talking to Brian here too. We had a health inspection done last week at our outdoor pools, and Phil LaRue did his, and he said he was just literally just talking about that. So that brought another point when Dan said that. So that is the case too. I want to make sure whoever's in our facility, since day one, I took this position, I want to make sure everyone's safe in there. So, but that's my take.
Any thoughts up here?
Well, what about out there?
Well, I was gonna go next. Yeah. I don't know. So do you have some reps from the school?
Yeah, the reason it came up initially is just the fact of student safety. I mean, you've got teenage drivers that as school starts will need to be driving down there, the dual sport athletes in the morning. We're running a van down that will have a coach drive, but we're going to be putting students on the road for 90 minutes a day to get to practice. Down to Muscatine, cutting down their practice time. So, I mean, it's just not an ideal situation. We're looking at student safety. I mean, I don't know how anybody up here is going to feel if there's an accident or something when somebody's driving back and forth to Muscatine. And if there was any way we could avoid that, we wanted to make sure all possibilities were explored before we committed to the financial resources and the contracting with the Muscatine Community Wide. And we also understand there's a difference between a recommendation I mean, everybody's going to recommend an err on the side of caution, but for the previous 2 seasons, the current unit hasn't been functioning at 100% capacity. So if this was a concern now, why wasn't it a concern then? So we just want to make sure that if there's a difference between the recommendation and if we can do it, or if it's recommended we not do it.
Good job, Jason. So what I would like to add here is I believe we're looking at this from the wrong side. And what I would implore the council to look at is, I respect Mr. Strain's opinion in that he says it's possible to have eye irritation. It is possible to have skin irritation. But what we can't deny is kids on the road. It's not possible, it's real. And we're gonna do that in the dark, and we're gonna do that through harvest, and we're gonna do that when wildlife's moving around a lot. That's not an if, that's a for sure. And that scares us, okay? So I wanna look at this from the standpoint of the children, not what this is gonna cost. Heaven's sakes, what if something goes wrong? Are we gonna care if it costs us $1,000 to open the pool? So I want to ask us to, I want to plead to think about the kids and think, can we work collaboratively to put this thing together? We're not talking about postponing this project. The engineer just said it likely won't start till November 1st. In a good scenario, we'll be done by then. We'll be done, and we all know what Mother Nature's going to do in this fall. It's going to get cool, it's going to get dry, and maybe, just maybe we can open the doors a half an hour before practice, let those kids practice for 2 hours and close it back up. That's, I think, all we're asking. And I would encourage the board and everyone here to think about how we can work together to where we can do this instead of trying to find reasons why we can't do this. That's all I ask. Thank you.
We're talking the 31st is the cutoff then, right?
I don't know the season exactly. I think the state meets around.
What's that?
Regional November 4th.
Yeah, so we would be done November 4th, maybe at the latest.
Because already looking at the week and a half to dry it out in order for construction to start. So you're thinking about middle of November then.
That I don't know. What I was trying to think of is, again, the school board is well aware of dates and how they tend to move too. So if we're sitting here at the end of September saying that we think we can start November 1st, okay, is that accurate or not? We know how timelines move,
Right.
but, we were kind of hoping to be in and out of there. Could we delay it a day or a week? I can't say. I got to defer to the professionals here.
Yep, yeah.
So I kind of had the same thought as you did, Kirby. The filtration system, the air handling wasn't good back then. Everybody had, I was in there for fire training. We had everybody's eyes burned, all of that. What I want to know is, I'm agreeing, I think we need to fill it. Are you guys okay with kids coming away saying, geez, my eyes are burned, my skin itches? I guess I don't want us to fill it up and then they come back and somebody say, well, geez, you guys did this and now look what we got.
Rachel, you've been coaching and you've been in there for the last couple of years as a coach and as a volunteer. So, there were irritations then. It was colder water, the doors were open, the blowers were going, and so, we were able to make it work in a not great scenario, but.
You can always rinse off and shower in the locker
Sure.
rooms right after too, which I think would help with the skin irritation. And they wear goggles for eye irritation.
So I guess what I'm getting out of this is everybody's willing to put forth, we might have a little discomfort, but we're gonna save ourselves travel time, safety, and more practice time, basically. And we're not gonna have kids on the road.
But at the same time, I think if we do open this, it's not just opening up for the facility, not the school, we have to open up for the community. Because if we open for the school, exactly, I'm saying it's a community facility first before it's a school facility.
So school,
I
so the
just-
community's constituents are paying the same as the district is?
The district
Per
only,
hour of occupancy and Baylor load?
I'm saying, yeah, like during the summertime and stuff, yeah, they are. Because the school, we got a check for about a little over $6,000 last year total from the junior high and high school swim team. And from all the PE classes and the fun days. So I'm saying, like, when I met with them, I said, if we're gonna open it, we'd open it for the community too, because I know for a fact, I would get phone call after phone call. Why are you opening for the swim team before not opening it for lap swim, water aerobics, stuff like that?
Okay, second question, what creates the environment within the natatorium that causes burning and itch?
Dan, you want to take that question? What creates the environment that would cause someone to be irritated from the chlorine?
Where are the chlorines coming from, Dan?
Yeah, so the chlorine is the disinfection that you are using. And so when that when the chlorine interacts with ammonia from, people, body oils, urine, stuff like that, that's when it becomes the chloramines, and that's what you're smelling. And that's what kind of like off gases into the pool area. So it's basically your disinfection and your chlorine when it meets with all the swimmers and the people in there. That's when it off gases and causes that smell and the chemicals.
Is there any way to control it?
The HVAC system.
Yeah, I mean, recommendation would be, the unit that we're putting on there. If you're asking if there's some temporary way, I don't know what we would do for me looking at it as an engineer, I understand we're looking at this at different perspectives. I don't know how we could do it to where we were controlling the correct amount to get those chloramines out of there.
So are the chloramines in the water or are they in the air?
In the air.
So how do you measure it in the air?
What do you mean?
You say you're measuring chloramine. So how do you measure it in the air with the air handling system?
So the air handling system is doing air changes per hour, and it's doing so much ventilation. So what we're designing by is ASHRAE, which is the American Society of Heating and Refrigerating Engineers. So we're doing ventilation and exhaust per that, which it's known through past experience. This is what gets rid of those chloramines. So we're not measuring the actual chloramines, no.
Okay, who measures the chloramines?
I don't know if there is a way to measure chloramines.
Is chloramines not the difference between the total and free chlorine in a swimming vessel per CDC? And then you end up with 4 states of it. And the monoxide, di, and how they break out. So
Where's this going though?
Your chloramines are controlled by the water and the water operator. Okay? Strand is solely looking at air ventilation. He originally proposed the air handler and said, we're not worried about the water chemistry. The water chemistry and the air handlers interrelate in that pool vessel. And because of the chloramines that are created from the bather load, it outgasses into the atmosphere based on the humidity and the temperatures. Both surface water.
We don't have any way to control that right now, do we?
All we have right now.
Adam has a major control of it as the operator of the facility. The main thing they can't control with the air handler is the exhaust and fresh air makeup, correct?
So we have one blower and one dehumidifier running right now. I'm saying if we open up the doors all day long, it will help. But what's going to happen when we close at 8 o'clock at night and it's going to sit there until 6 o'clock in the morning?
The question for Dan was, where does the chloramines come from? And the chloramines are directly a relationship of the swimmer bather load, the amount of people in that water vessel, and the amount of chlorine and how well it gets cleaned up. You can kill 80% to 90% of those chloramines by running through ozone and UV disinfectant. But are you going to put a $20,000 or $12,000 UV unit on your pipe? No. We're already eating 300,000 up on the roof. That's a necessity. That's my point. I'm very uncomfortable with individuals that don't get to the core of it. Monochloramine, dichloramine, and tri. We use chloramines for disinfection and drinking water so that we can run it miles out into the grid. It even referenced that through the CDC. Your CPO training tells you that if you have a combined chlorine over 0.2, you've exceeded the standard by national standards for pool operators, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if you have a residual by your Taylor technology test that has a 0.3, you've always been over the top. So you operate or manipulate the pool to make it meet the needs of the bathers, the citizens or occupants that use that. Me, I'm on a fence here. I look at it from 2 perspectives. One is the facility needs to be put together, and I was told 2 years ago 2023 that our previous contract was going to do that. That didn't happen. I asked you when I blew out the football field, do you have the air handlers working over 2 years ago? That never happened, did it? Did the air handlers ever effectively work from 2 years ago, Adam, at full capacity? As designed by an engineer?
At the very, very beginning, but after that, no.
For how long?
That I would have to look back.
Okay. So the school board is approaching this from, they've got a very narrow sport activity. You know, from the environmental side, I can't support it. From the understanding of what they need, I would want to support it. And that's where I struggle, because I understand what that facility can do. And I fully am comfortable what it is capable of when pushed to that level. I was up there in the swim meet. It's toast. Turn the water temperature down. If they don't like swimming in it, 78 degrees, competition swim, enjoy, and it's cold.
I had it at 82 heater.
Once again, it's not just a competition pool, it's a community pool.
But where do you receive most of the revenue from? The community side for the indoor natatorium?
Kirby?
Where is it driven from?
So something that occurred to me just while we were sitting here is, yeah, the chemical makeup of the pool, yes, but that is bathing load. Maybe if we were looking at the dozen swimmers, that's a low bathing load, maybe we can turn it down or something, that's Adam's world. But I was thinking about the general public, and can we use our existing contractual relationship through the 2080 to make this schools as a path forward to be school only? Because, you know, we do have a contract for that. Could we use that to say, I'm trying to sympathetic with Adam's up against, because I don't know that I can condone opening it for everyone all day. I had my mind wrapped around a couple hours each morning. Is there a path forward with that?
Well, I think
Would be my question.
I think that would come down to a council decision
Yeah,
too.
because I know for a fact, I mean, if we did that, I don't know. I'm just saying, I know for a fact, I will get a million phone calls.
How many people actually use it during the day?
Quite a bit during swim lessons. We'd have to open up for swim lessons and stuff like that. So water aerobics and lap swim and stuff.
Every day.
I mean, there's open swim every night. I mean, it's.
Jason.
I'm hearing this is a community thing and this is a school thing, which generates more revenue. Doesn't the community run everybody that goes to school here basically pays the same taxes, I think, that I do. I don't have kids. So I don't think we need to get in a, excuse my language, crap throwing contest, see who pays more. I think we need to work together to see what we can come up with.
And it's like, when Kirby referenced the 2080 and the contractual agreement is, we're providing the service for the city with giving them preferential treatment on scheduling. They're getting the use of the gyms, with no charge. So there is a give, and so they're still getting their service from that agreement, that contract that Kirby referenced. And right now, we're not getting anything. So that's where we kind of differentiate a little bit between saying we're going to give this to the school because we have that contract, whereas we're going to look at the public good. So it's just a little bit different. But we are looking at it from a student safety and an athlete safety standpoint, and that's kind of where we're advocating right now.
I think if you looked at it from
the
point of view of just the general public that hasn't been able to use the pool since February, they're not going to really care if we slice and dice it to make it look like a city school thing. They're going to say, I haven't been in there either since February. Why not me? And I think it's going to, I mean, you can imagine you're not going to be approached right now, but you're going to get
It's
approached.
coming.
Yeah. So I would think it would be my thought that if there is a motion to refill the pool, the council state who or who isn't limited to use it. If you're going to limit it to the swim team, I think that ought to be in the motion if you're gonna open it up to the public in general as the public had been used to. I think that ought to be in the motion.
So, Tim, and for the chlorine portion of it, Ron, do we have to run it in colder water?
It'll help some by running the filter, but a lot of it deals with the filtration and the way it turns. And as I've said before, it's reverse flow cool. And because of that, it doesn't filter well. So the combined chlorine is always shooting up. That's why the air handler is so important in how you operate. And one question that comes to my mind, if the pool's not open, are the staff on furlough? I said that to the wife and she just said, that's a good one. Which they run the rec department out of the aquatic center.
Yeah.
That's a true statement. But how much of the aquatic staff need to be there if the pool's closed? And the second question maybe is more for Dan Strand is, with it empty, how much drying time and why does it need to be dry?
There you go, Dan, did you hear that?
I did not. Can you repeat?
How much dry time does it have to have to necessitate construction work for the air handler?
You're saying like if it was full and we needed to drain it to dry it?
They drain it November 1.
Yeah, it's there's so many variables involved with that. Are we running air through there? Are we exhausting air? Do you have fans? How many humidifiers do you have going? What's the temperature outside? There's just so many variables. I can't give you, an exact time. Now, Adam is saying, last time it took about a week and a half, 2 weeks, I think is what Adam said to dry out. That'd probably be a good estimate. But if you're looking at like number of days, I can give you about 2 weeks, but if you're looking at like number of days, I couldn't give you an exact answer. And I would like to point out, it's been mentioned a couple of times, November 1, but I guess we really don't know, if we get a contractor that's ready to go and you guys turn the contract around, maybe they're ready to start in October to do demolition work. I don't know. I guess it depends on how quickly they work and how quickly you guys work to get a contract in place. So that's just something else I want to point out. We really don't know. I mean, when they would be able to start, it depends on when we get bids.
All right. There is no more questions or comments. Is there a motion? And in the motion, we should contain in there the users of the pool.
Make a motion to open it up for everybody.
All right. Posture's
Yes.
End of October, yes. Sorry.
Posture's made the motion to open up the pool facility
I'll second.
for the general public. And Helm with the second.
McNeil,
Yes.
Posturen,
Yes.
Hembry,
Abstain.
Helm,
Yes.
All right. Then we'll move down to number 3, and this is discussion of possible action concerning making a contribution to the school's change order that was needed because they found the manhole underneath the bleachers that were there. Mr. Wagner?
Basically, the little summary that was added is, I think, where we're at. The council, at one point, when you discussed it last, talked about a $5,000 contribution, or up to that. And further discussion was that the council wanted to see something pursued with the consultant as to was it missed by them or whatever their explanation might be. Jason gave me a letter that gave their point of view or their position. I copied to your packet. But basically, we've come back then to, is the letter in the packet enough for you? Are you ready to talk about whether or not you want to make a contribution to relocate the bleacher project?
Once again, the school personnel are here, and welcome back, Mr. Brennan. Brian Brennan's back. If you guys have any questions for him as well.
Thanks. For medical reasons, obviously I missed parts of this. I was there when the manhole was discovered. And so I got in on the early stages, and then I kind of had a gap in there. And I'm sorry, I haven't actually seen this letter that you mentioned. But one thing, there were several options in the beginning we talked about, and I appreciate that we've done what we've done because I'm convinced we did the right thing. We got that slid back, the manhole's on grade, it's accessible, and I'm glad for that. I'm glad we did it that way. Had we decided to relocate the line, if we was to move 200 foot of it and a couple of manholes and realignment, engineering, all that, we probably would have spent $50,000. And so to make a small contribution, I've kind of said from the beginning, I'm not opposed to that. It's good to have a working relationship. I will admit, in my experience, when it comes to projects, when you own the project, you own the surprise. So kind of see it both ways. I think it's kind of a tough one. However, I do think, now I would ask this, does anybody know yet what the quantity of the change order is? Yeah, we talked 10,000.
I mean, that's just a shade over that. I mean,
Little
right,
over that.
right, yeah.
Okay.
10,000. Yeah, 10, yeah. 10,870.
I would support the council's decision either way, but I will say I'm a fan of working together on stuff like this. So if we were to make a contribution to that, I wouldn't be opposed. I think the sewer budget will handle it. I'm glad it's done right. I'm glad it's accessible. I'm glad we didn't cover it up because that was one of the options. So.
All right.
I'll make a motion to.
Go back to the original motion. I've given them, 5,000.
5,000.
Yeah.
Yes.
I second that.
Basically what Mr. Brennan said, I want to be in good standing relations with both.
All right, Posturing with the first and Helm with the second for a $5,000 donation.
Posturing,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yeah,
Helm,
Yes.
McNeil.
Yes. All right, thank you, Brian. And thank you guys for showing up, for coming tonight. Number 4 tonight, it's a two-parter. So if you guys want to stick around, and there's 2 parts to this one, hang on to your shorts. The first one is discussion and possible action that would concern a contractor's quote to replace some broken power pole to not to exceed 10,000. And John is here if you guys have any questions for him, or if he wants to explain it a little bit.
I'll just start to get any questions about it.
No, needs replaced.
Yeah, with staff that I've got, I mean.
All right, so if there are no questions for John, is there a motion to approve this not to exceed $10,000?
Motion.
Hembry with the first,
Second.
and McNeil with the second.
Posturing,
Yes.
Hembry,
yes.
Helm,
Yes.
McNeil.
And the second one is the discussion of possible action that would authorize city staff to use up to $50,000 in contractor-related work. John?
Well, Brian and I talked about this, and Brian wrote this part up. There's just various other projects that we're just falling behind on. I just don't have the time or the people to do a lot of these projects. And I talked to Brian, and he said we should consult with you guys and get some direction on what we really need to do. So I had anything more to add to it.
It could be any number. I put in 50. Melissa did the work in the box showing the 6 months that we're not using for jobs that are not filled, which is the 163,000.
You mean job positions that we don't have, sure.
Wages not used.
Yeah, wages not used, yeah, that's how
And
we could
benefits.
fund
Wages
this.
and benefits.
You got some projects right now set to go.
Well,
Yeah,
I've got,
just a couple?
just a couple.
I'll make the motion.
All right, McNeil with the motion to use up to $50,000 and Helm with the second.
Posturing,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
McNeil.
All right, so that takes us down to the reports, the mayor's report. I'm happy to report that in 2 days, school is back in session. So kids will be walking around in the morning and the afternoon, going to and from school. I want to thank the Public Works for getting out and painting a lot of the the crosswalks and just keeping an eye out for those kids. Council reports, committee, city manager, department heads. All right, then that brings us down to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
McNeil with the first and Posturing with the second.
Henry,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
McNeil.
Yes.
Posturing.
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.